Reality is bleaker than anything you've pictured. A woman is capable of betraying it all: her principles, her kin, even her own children. If she decides the man in front of her is strong enough to master her chaos, that isn't a dream. That's biology. That's history. In old wars, when a tribe fell, the women did not flee. They adjusted. They wed their conquerors and bore their children, not from desire, but because survival ignores sentiment. And feminine instinct ties itself less to morality than to power. She might label you toxic, yet if you project authority, if your quiet outweighs her turmoil, she will yield. Not from love, but from something deeper, something she cannot name. But you must understand it. Freud wasn't aiming to demean women. He was attempting to decipher them. He believed a battle raged beneath every decision, feeling, and seduction, between what a woman desires and what she's been conditioned to desire. She can't fully explain why danger pulls her, why safety makes her retreat, why she wrecks the man who brings peace yet yields to the one who unsettles her mind. Freud viewed this not as muddle, but as structure. Her ID, her primal core, pursues power, protection, and pleasure. It ignores morality. It's indifferent to your kindness. It asks only, can he command my chaos? Her superego, the voice of culture, parents, and wounds, judges that desire, shaming it and calling it wrong. Caught between them, her ego struggles to survive. That's why she swings between heat and chill. Why she wants you and then turns on you. Why she appears unstable, yet keeps a grip on your attention. Because deep in her unconscious, love isn't peace. Love is power. And if you miss this, you'll read her tests as affection, her quiet as mystique, her confusion as innocence, and you'll overlook the one truth she'll never speak. She doesn't crave safety. She wants to feel claimed. Sigmund Freud didn't begin as a rebel. He started as a physician seeking why people suffered. Yet the deeper he probed the mind, the more unsettling the answers grew, especially with women, and he distrusted appearances, not smiles, not manners, not even emotion. What captivated Freud was the unconscious, the part that speaks without words, acts without reason, and wants without permission. And when he examined female desire, not declared wishes but actual gravitations, he found something that broke the social fantasy. It wasn't romantic, it wasn't gentle, it wasn't safe. It was raw, primitive, anchored in survival and deference to power. Freud saw women leave kind men and fixate on those who awaken their shame, fear, or yearning. He noticed their words clashed with their instincts. Their guilt failed to halt their patterns. He named it repression, a defense that buries what the mind cannot accept. Women were suppressing their own truth, and society aided them in doing so. When Freud tried to reveal it, the world recoiled. He was mocked, censored, even despised. Not for being wrong, but for being too accurate. Because no one, not even the woman herself, wants to admit what truly drives her. You assume she's ignoring you? That her silence signals disinterest. But Freud would say this isn't about you. It's about her mind shielding itself from what it can't face. Her silence isn't absence. It's a deliberate response from her unconscious, a defense. When the id within, her primal hunger for connection stirs, it frightens the rest of her. Because deep inside, the little girl she once was still lives. And that girl learned one lesson early. Love leads to abandonment. Maybe she cried in a room where no one came. Maybe she reached for her father and found emotional vacancy. That experience didn't disappear. It sank into her unconscious. Now, as an adult, that pain masquerades as control. It whispers, disappear before he gets too close. So when you text and she doesn't reply, yet still watches your stories, hovering in your orbit, know you haven't lost her interest. You triggered her unresolved wounds. This is repression at work. Her mind buries the parts that yearn for you because the superego warns that closeness is danger. The ego tries to mediate. Don't reply. Don't feel. Stay in control. She doesn't disappear to hurt you. She vanishes to guard the fragile system that keeps her functioning. You're not confronting just a woman. You're dealing with her history. With patterns older than your name in her phone, with echoes of nights she cried alone and vowed never again. And here's the tragic paradox. The more authentic you are, the more threatening you seem to her unconscious because you bring warmth. And her nervous system was trained to expect cold. You offer presence, but her mind was shaped by absence. Don't take her silence personally. Take it as proof of how fiercely she's still fighting herself. And remember, When a woman runs without clear reason, it isn't always fear of you. It's fear of what you awaken. She looks at you as if she wants you. Her smile lingers. Her body language pulls you in, yet the moment you step closer, she retreats. She hints, teases, withdraws, and you're left baffled, stuck between invitation and rejection. This isn't immaturity, it's psychological warfare, and Freud noted it long before Tinder existed. He called it the conflict between ID and superego. The id craves thrill, connection, intimacy, dominance, surrender. It doesn't care about morality, tradition, or timing, but the superego judges every urge. It whispers shame. Be a good girl. Don't give in. And so the mind splits. That split turns into sexual manipulation, not always conscious, but invariably strategic. As a child, she learned attention equals survival. If she could be desirable, she could be safe, but full surrender was never safe. That was punished. Now, as an adult, she seduces without intent. The cleavage, the slow blink, the subtle touch. It activates your masculine chase reflex. She wants desire, not possession. She wants to be seen, yet not claimed. Freud called this reaction formation. It's when someone expresses the opposite of their true feeling to defend themselves. She may crave closeness, yet act distant. She may feel sexual hunger, yet speak of boundaries and purity, because admitting the real feeling would destroy her illusion of control. You think she's hot and cold, but in truth, she's divided between hunger and fear. Her ego sits between them, desperately managing the chaos. It tells her, flirt, but don't commit. Control the narrative, stay in power. And each time you lean in too far, her unconscious screams, run. You can't win this game by playing along. If you chase her body, she'll crucify your soul. But if you read the script, seeing the performance without reacting, you become untouchable. Because a woman can manipulate the man who wants her, but she cannot control the man who knows himself, and that frightens her more than love ever could. You believe she's special, rare, different, self-sufficient, but what you feel isn't attraction. It's scarcity. Freud would say this isn't about her, it's about what she represents to your unconscious, the missing piece of love you never received. When a woman turns cold, distant, detached, your ID panics. It screams, don't lose this, fight, prove your worth. But that impulse doesn't come from love, it comes from lack. As a child, perhaps your mother gave affection inconsistently. Maybe she was emotionally unpredictable, loving one moment, punishing the next. That trained your nervous system to chase approval. You learned love is earned, not received. So now, when a woman mirrors that distance, your unconscious says, this is familiar, this feels like home. And you fall into the trap not because she's special, but because her behavior reactivates an old wound. She doesn't need to say a word. Her silence becomes a mirror of all the moments you felt invisible as a boy. And you don't only crave her attention, you want to heal. But here's the poison. The scarcer she becomes, the more valuable she seems. Not because she's truly rare, but because your brain equates absence with worth. Freud called this displacement. You're not chasing her. You're chasing the emotional ghost of your past. You're not attracted to her. You're addicted to the feeling of trying to matter, and she knows. Even if not consciously, she senses the power. The moment she withholds affection, your masculinity wobbles. Your self-worth gets outsourced to her attention. But here's the harsh truth. No woman should hold that power over your nervous system. Until you stop equating emotional starvation with love, you'll keep crawling back to women who feed you crumbs and call it a feast. You don't rise by earning her validation. You rise by recognizing the script and refusing the role, because real power starts when you stop chasing your childhood through the bodies of modern women. She tells you she's ready. She says, you're the one. She talks of babies, a future, marriage, and for a moment you feel chosen. Then suddenly something shifts. The dream collapses. She changes her mind, or worse, blames you for what she promised. What just happened? Freud called it projection, the unconscious shifting of inner conflict onto someone else. She wasn't lying to you, she was lying to herself, and you were merely the stage for her performance. At first, her id awakened, her instinct to attach, be desired, and imagine a future. But as that vision neared reality, her superego, the inner critic shaped by family, trauma, and fear, whispered, you're not ready. He'll leave. This will end badly. That inner war created dissonance, and rather than face it, She projected it onto you. Suddenly, you became the unstable one. You became the reason she couldn't trust love. You became the excuse her unconscious needed to escape. This isn't new. As children, when emotions overwhelmed us, our minds built stories to protect us. Women who faced abandonment or pressure growing up often develop a deep fear of real commitment. Yet they still crave the illusion, the fantasy, safety, and identity of being wanted. So they borrow your stability to build the dream, then destroy it the moment reality arrives. That's reaction formation. She acts as though she wants family and lifelong loyalty, yet unconsciously fears the vulnerability it demands. So she flips, self sabotages, and tells herself, I was wrong about him, when in truth she was never clear about herself. And here's where most men collapse. They internalize the guilt, they try to fix what was never theirs to fix. They beg to prove their worth inside someone else's inner war. But you can't win a battle that lives inside her unconscious. You cannot save someone from the lies they need to believe. The wise man doesn't argue with her switch. He recognizes the script and leaves the theater. Because a woman who projects her chaos onto you isn't building a life, she's building a shield. And you are the casualty it's made from. She mocks you, belittles your masculinity, calls you arrogant, cold, controlling. She says, I could never be with a man like you. Yet she keeps appearing, circling, watching. This isn't confusion, it's reaction formation. Freud's term for expressing the opposite of what one truly feels, because the truth is too dangerous to admit. What she hides is attraction, what she fears is submission, what she dresses as contempt is an aching, suffocating need for masculine dominance. Her words are a mask. But her biology doesn't lie. She criticizes the very traits her ID craves. Strength, mystery, power. Why? Because she was taught not to love what she desires, only to fear it. Maybe she grew up under the weight of a weak father or the grip of an overbearing one. Maybe she learned that wanting a powerful man made her lesser, not feminist enough, or just another girl giving in. So her superego, the voice shaped by social judgment and internal shame, launches a defense. He's toxic. He's unsafe. He's probably a narcissist. It's easier to shame the desire than to surrender to it. So she attacks you with words, hoping they'll murder the part of her that wants to be claimed. And each time you hold your frame, refusing to bend to her emotional noise, she hates you more. But that hatred is laced with arousal, because your masculine stillness is the gravity her chaos secretly longs for. This is where men fall into the trap. They begin defending, explaining, apologizing. They try to correct the image she projects, not seeing they've already submitted to it. But the man who understands projection doesn't react to the insult. He listens for what her unconscious is really saying. Your presence makes me feel things I was trained to suppress. And the only response is silence, stillness, power. Because when a woman fights you for the control she secretly wants you to take, you don't negotiate, you don't retreat, you don't chase, you just hold. And in that holding, her mask begins to crack. You thought you wanted her. But strip away the beauty, the curves, the chaos, what remains? A pattern, a familiar ache, a reenactment. Freud said, the unconscious repeats what it never resolved. We seek the same pain not because we enjoy suffering, but because suffering feels like home. And that's the illusion. You weren't chasing a woman. You were chasing the ghost of your unmet needs. The woman who ignores you, pulls you close, then vanishes, mirroring your mother's absence or your father's coldness. She feels real because she activates the boy inside you, the one who still believes, if I can get her to love me, I'll finally be enough. But that was never her job, and the deeper betrayal isn't hers, it's yours. You betrayed yourself the moment you made her the solution to your inner void. Worst of all, you believed that if you suffered just right, if you played the role well enough, you'd finally be chosen. But you weren't in love. You were hypnotized by emotional scarcity, unhealed memory, and the secret hope that fixing her would repair the boy. And that's why it keeps breaking you, because no woman can mother the man who won't father himself. The illusion was never her attention, it was the belief that your worth depends on it. You don't fight the game by reacting. You end the game by leaving the arena. The woman who tests, withholds, seduces, and withdraws isn't your opponent. She's a mirror, and your only job is to stop flinching at your reflection. Freud taught that true power comes not from repression, but from sublimation. Taking your chaotic instincts, the hunger, the need, the ache, and redirecting them into something higher so the urge to chase her becomes fuel. Pause. Hold that fire and aim it at your becoming. Because the man she cannot manipulate isn't the one who wins her, but the one who doesn't need to. While she posts stories to provoke you, you're building muscle, physical, mental, spiritual. While she measures her worth in attention, you're sharpening your purpose in solitude. Let your silence become surgical. Let your indifference carry the weight of a man who remembers who he is. Your ego no longer negotiates between your ID's cravings and her superego's games. It stands grounded in reality, not hers, not society's, but yours. Because emotional sovereignty means this: you feel everything, yet obey nothing that doesn't serve your path. You no longer seek women who test your value. You attract women who recognize it because it's carved into your presence, and if they don't, you remain unmoved. Not because you're cold, but because your warmth is earned, not extracted. The feminine isn't healed by being worshipped. She is healed by witnessing a man who will not fold. Not for beauty, not for guilt, not for loneliness. And that man is born the moment you choose yourself, over her attention, her confusion, and the comfort of being chosen by someone who hasn't chosen herself. You don't need her to understand. You don't need closure. You don't need a conversation, a text, or an apology, because silence is its own answer and clarity is its own revenge. Let her play her games. Let her confuse herself with freedom. Let her run from the fire she secretly prayed for. You're not here to be understood by chaos. You are here to transcend it. Every man must one day walk away. Not with anger, not with pain, but with a strange sacred stillness. The kind that arrives only when you stop chasing ghosts. She was never yours. She was a reflection of your forgotten wound. And now you no longer bleed for mirrors. You don't punish her. You don't fix her. You don't wait for her to grow. You disappear with dignity, with depth, because the greatest threat to a manipulative woman isn't the man who resists her. It's a man who no longer reacts at all, and that is where her power ends. And yours begins.